Hey there, good morning, everybody. It is Friday, the 18th of March, 2022, 7:48 in the morning, and here we are with Judges chapter number 3 today. We introduced the book the last couple of days. This is after Joshua's death. So Moses and Joshua, the first two great leaders of Israel, Moses delivering them out of Egypt, Joshua bringing them into the promised land, and then dividing the land up between the 12 tribes. And then he tells them, you need to go in and you need to drive out the inhabitants of the land. And this is what God had told them to do as well. And so they go in, but they don't drive everybody out. Because they don't drive everybody out, they are going to be susceptible to temptation by those tribes. And we're going to see what some of that temptation is this morning. We probably already know if you've been studying the Bible at all for any length of time. And we're going to start seeing this cycle that we talked about yesterday, where Israel rejects God. They're tempted to follow the pagan gods. They do. God, as a judgment on that decision, allows them to be enslaved by the people that they were tempted by. And then they cry out to the Lord, they repent, and he sends a deliverer, a judge, who releases them from that that time. And then at the end of the judge's reign, they go right back to what they were doing before. So we're going to see three judges this morning: Othniel, Ehud, and then a final guy, I forget his name. He's only getting one verse, and that's why I don't tend to remember him. But let's go ahead and pray, and we'll jump right in here to Judges chapter 3. Father, thank you for the reading and study. Thank you for the lesson that's given to us over and over again here about your people. I pray that we wouldn't fall prey to the same things. Help us to reach our potential, what you have for us. We ask this in Christ's name. Amen. All right, Judges 3, verse number 1. Now these are the nations which the Lord left to prove Israel by them, even as many of Israel as had not known all the wars of Canaan. So remember, God said yesterday, he's promised before that if Israel would go up to battle with these nations, he would help drive them out. And God says, okay, you want to abide with them? You want to profit off of taxation of these people? Fine, I'm not going to drive them out. Verse 2, only that the generations of the children of Israel might know to teach them war, at the least such as before knew nothing thereof. Namely, and these are the nations that were left behind: 5 lords of the Philistines, and all the Canaanites, and the Sidonians, and the Hivites that dwell in Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal Hermon, upon the entering in of Hamath. And they were to prove Israel by them, to know whether they would hearken unto the commandments of the Lord, which he commanded their fathers by the hand of Moses. So those are the nations that are all left behind, and we'll find out if they drive them out or they allow them to abide. We know, don't we? There's no spoiler here. They allow them to abide. And the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, Hittites and Amorites and Perizzites and Hivites and Jebusites. They were supposed to drive these people out, but they allowed them to stay. God is a God of separation. He doesn't want his people living like the lost world. He wants us to be different. He wants us to come out from among them and be separate. And that's where the children of Israel fell short, and they're going to pay for it. What did they do specifically as a result of dwelling with them? They took their daughters to be their wives and gave their daughters to their sons and served their gods. So they started intermarrying. God never wants a Christian person to marry a non-Christian. And he doesn't want us to give our children in marriage to non-Christians. And so this is the trouble that they're having. Once you do that, the non-believing spouse is going to put pressure on the believing spouse to follow after their gods. And it may even be that there is no God, it's just the God of self. Verse 7, and the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and forgat the Lord their God, and served Baalim and the groves. And so after the intermarrying, now comes the other religion. Verse 8, Therefore, the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of, look at that name, let me see if I can get it right, Chushan-Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia. And the children of Israel served Chushan-Rishathaim 8 years. And when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord raised up a deliverer to the children of Israel, who delivered them, even Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. So we've already started to see this cycle that we told you about yesterday. You've got the worship of false gods, the imprisonment by the nation that they're following, the cry out for, excuse me here, can't see out of this eye real well today, the imprisonment by those people that they've been worshiping with, then the cry out to God for deliverance, and now the deliverer shows up. This particular deliverer is Othniel. He is Caleb's nephew, basically. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he judged Israel and went out to war, and the Lord delivered Chushan-Rishathaim, the king of Mesopotamia, into his hand, and his hand prevailed against Chushan-Rishathaim, and the land had rest 40 years. And Othniel, the son of Kenaz, died. So you see, as long as the people are following the man of God that has the Spirit of God upon him, they have rest in the land. But when they depart from the ways of the Lord and follow these pagan people, then they become imprisoned by God's allowance. So Othniel delivers the people from Chushan-Rishathaim. How long were they enslaved here? 8 years. So after 8 years of enslavement, I don't know, then Othniel comes on the scene, delivers them, and then they have rest 40 years. So look at that ratio. 8 years of imprisonment, 40 years of freedom. Verse number 12. And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord. So as soon as Othniel dies, they revert to their old ways. And the Lord strengthened Eglon, the king of Moab, against Israel, because they had done evil in the sight of the Lord. So if you remember when Lot and his 2 unmarried daughters went up into the mountains outside of Sodom and Gomorrah after the destruction, if you recall the story, they got their father drunk. One night they got him drunk and one daughter slept with him. The next night the other daughter got him drunk and slept with him. And they conceived of their father and gave birth to 2 children, Moab and Ammon. And so these 2 incestuous children are going to be 2 of the great enemies of Israel. One of them mentioned here. The next one is Ammon is also going to be mentioned in this chapter. So here's Eglon, this king of Moab. And so because of the Israelites turning on God yet again, God strengthens Eglon and allows him to overtake them. Verse number 13. And he gathered unto him the children of Ammon, so there's his brothers, if you will, ancestors, and Amalek, and went and smote Israel and possessed the city of palm trees. So the children of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, 18 years. But when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord raised them up a deliverer, Ehud, the son of Gera, a Benjamite, a man left-handed, and by him the children of Israel sent a present unto Eglon, the king of Moab. So now it's 18 years of imprisonment. You know, the longer you spend in sin, the less painful you are aware it is. The first enslavement was 8 years. Now it's 18 years. It's like a messy diaper on a baby. It's mine and I'm comfortable in it. That's a terrible illustration, but I've heard that used before. And that's where we get, we're comfortable in our sin. and so it doesn't bother us as much anymore. It bothers God greatly. The more you'll draw nigh to God, the more your sin will bother you. If you're living in sin this morning and it doesn't bother you that you are, then it's because your heart is very far from the Lord. The closer you get to God, the more you realize your sin. Isaiah chapter 6, when the Lord appeared to Isaiah, Isaiah immediately said, "Unclean, unclean, woe unto me." And so when you get close to God, you'll realize just how sinful your sin is. Verse 15 told us that this next judge after Othniel is Ehud, the son of Gera. He's left-handed, which that detail is given to us, I think, for a specific reason. And so by him, the children of Israel sent a present unto Eglon, the king of Moab. But Ehud made him a dagger which had 2 edges of a cubit length. A cubit is elbow to the tip of your longest finger. And he did gird it under his raiment on his right thigh. So he's got this dagger, double-sided, double-edged dagger, and it's as long as his forearm and hand. He attached it to his right thigh. So being left-handed, I'm trusting that he's taking this thing, you can't see me, but he takes it from his right thigh and he's going to stab Ehud. Spoiler alert. Verse 17, and he brought the present unto Eglon, king of Moab, and Eglon was a very fat man. So there's a little detail for us. And when he had made an end to offer the present, he sent away the people that bare the present. But he himself turned again from the quarries that were by Gilgal, and said, I have a secret errand unto thee, O king. Who said, keep silence. And all that stood by went out from him. So this is it's setting the scene. If you can visualize all this in your mind, here's the king. We're going to see that he's in this parlor, in this summertime house. He's a very wealthy king, and he's sitting out there, patio, I don't know. It has locking doors, we'll see in a minute. So he's out there, and he's got attendants. Every king is going to have some attendants around him. And then here comes Ehud, and he has this gift with him, and he's got some servants that are bearing it. Maybe they were Ehud's servants, maybe they were Eglon's servants, but somebody brings the gift in with Ehud. And Ehud has this dagger along his right thigh as he's walking in, but it's hidden by his clothing. And so once he gets inside, the ones who bore the gift, that brought the gift into the room, they're dismissed and sent away. And then, for whatever reason, we see Ehud here. He tells Eglon that he's got something to say to him. What does he say here? Oh, I have a secret errand unto thee, O king. Well, the secret errand is to kill him. And so after saying that, he said, okay, keep silence, and then he sent his servants out. So now it's just Ehud and Eglon in the room. Ehud, the judge of Israel, Eglon, the king of Moab. Ehud has this dagger on his thigh. Verse number 20. And Ehud came unto him, and he was sitting in a summer parlor, which he had for himself alone. And he said, I have a message from God unto thee. And he arose out of his seat. And Ehud put forth his left hand, and took the dagger from his right thigh, and thrust it into his belly. So Ehud takes the dagger, left-handed man, from his right thigh, and he thrusts it into Eglon's belly, not his own belly. That's the gift from God. Hey, I brought a gift from God for you. I'm going to stab you in the belly with this dagger. And the haft, meaning the handle part, also went in after the blade. And the fat closed upon the blade, so that he could not draw the dagger out of his belly, and the dirt came out. We told you that Judges is a very dark and R-rated book, very violent and so forth. So he takes this dagger that's at least 18 inches long, and he is an angry, angry judge here. He shoves this thing so far into Eglon's body that even and maybe that part, I don't know, what did it say, the haft, you know how you got a handle, and then sometimes there's that little perpendicular piece so that your hand doesn't slip down on the blade. Maybe that got stuck in. But Eglon is so fat that when he sticks this dagger in, and that goes in the body too, that he can't even pull that out. And then the dirt came out. We presume that to mean whatever was in his intestines at the time is flowing out of this wound. So, verse 23, then Ehud, this is the Israelite judge, went forth through the porch and shut the doors of the parlor upon him and locked them. So Ehud goes, and everybody's out of the room now. He closes the doors and he locks the doors from the inside. When he was gone out, his servants came, and when they saw that, behold, the doors of the parlor were locked, they said, surely he covereth his feet in his slumber chamber. So Ehud goes and locks the doors, and then he goes out of a window or something, and he takes off. Well, then the servants come to check on him. They find the doors locked, and they say, oh, he must be resting. He must be asleep. We'll leave him alone. Now what's happening is Eglon is being given time to die. He's bleeding out. The intestinal discharge, if you will, is going to get into his bloodstream. It's going to contaminate his body and produce an infection. Eglon's going to die from this, and locking the doors to prevent the servants from coming in is just prolonging the time that he can get some sort of care, some sort of first aid. Verse 25, and they tarried till they were ashamed. And behold, he opened not the doors of the parlor. Therefore they took a key and opened them, and behold, their Lord was fallen down dead on the earth. So Ehud successfully assassinated Eglon. And Ehud escaped while they tarried, and passed beyond the quarries, and escaped unto Serath. And it came to pass, when he was come, that he blew a trumpet in the mountain of Ephraim, and the children of Israel went down with him from the mount, and he before them. And he said unto them, follow after me, for the Lord hath delivered your enemies, the Moabites, into your hand. And they went down after him, and took the fords of Jordan toward Moab, and suffered not a man to pass over. And they slew of Moab at that time about 10,000 men, all lusty and all men of valor, and there escaped not a man. Of course, that word lusty just means bloodlust, willing to go to war, willing to fight. These were soldiers, warriors. So God is giving them a great deal of ability here because of the leadership of Ehud. Verse 30, so Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land had rest 80 years. So a score is 20, 80 is 80. So under Othniel, you got 8 years of bondage, followed by 40 years of peace. Now you got 18 years of bondage, followed by 80 years of peace. These lengths of time keep getting longer. Verse 31, here's the last verse of the chapter. We've learned about Othniel, we've learned about Ehud. Now there's Shamgar. After him was Shamgar, the son of Anath, which slew of the Philistines 600 men with an ox goad, and he also delivered Israel. And so that's it. That's all that we learn about Shamgar, as far as I can recall. So 3 judges in this first chapter, Othniel, Ehud, and Shamgar. I don't know, can you memorize them like the presidents of the United States? George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, John Quincy Adams? I don't know. I don't even remember them anymore. All right, so that's chapter number 3 for you, and we're going to see this repeated all the way through this book. Eventually, we're going to get to a saying. And every chapter will end with this saying, in those days there arose what is it? In those days there was no king in Israel, and every man did that which was right in their own eyes. And so there's this matter of what is it called? Early in the morning, my brain's not working and flowing, just yell. Situational ethics. Depending on what's going on, will determine what I do. And that's not how God intends for us to live. Obey the Bible, obey God, do right, no matter what happens. Bob Jones Sr. used to say, do right though the stars fall. All right, I got to get out of here. I'll leave you alone. Thanks for listening this morning. As always, please like, love, and share the post. Let people know that we're out here, and we will see you tomorrow morning again for Judges chapter number 4. God bless you. Have a wonderful Friday.